Luang started talking a bit about the climate here and the weather and the things we are dependent on when we live on Earth, and the fact that we have to kind of protect ourselves and build things and ward off the weather and find ways to exist in this planet. And like here, living here, you get the Pacific Ocean that sends humidity. So that's why this land is fertile in this part of the country. And Australia is not just one country, it's a whole continent. And only 1/3 of it is inhabitable in that sense. And that's just because it depends on the water coming from the sea and the moisture. If we don't have that, we can't live. And thinking about the cold and the heat that we have to endure, we can live in this building here because we've got a heater. And these are all things that we have to invent and find ways to live. But the Buddha, like over all the lives that the Buddha spent gathering experiences, he found that like human beings have to live in a way that's responsible for nature, that doesn't use the natural resources too much, and just not to become too selfish about what one needs and what one wants from Earth and from one's surrounding. So to live in a balanced way without just thinking about oneself, or not in an egotistic way, which is very much what we can observe in society these days. The Buddha said we need to know the world, know what the world is like, know what we depend on, know what we need for life. And many times he stressed that we need to rely on tradition and what the elders teach us, the old generations, because they've got experiences of how to live their lives skillfully in this nature, in this country, in this climate. It's very interesting to see how human beings are able to invent things. For example, he went to New Zealand and he saw that actually like those old tribes that lived there before the Westerners came, they just lived in caves or under the trees. They lived in harmony with nature. They were able to kind of adapt to the environment on that level. Now we use mindfulness and wisdom to understand these things and to find out like how to survive. But there's still threats from nature. Like nobody can escape that sankharas are conditioned phenomena also of the body, and the way we are built up, like through nature, will have its lifespan, and it will go deteriorating, continue deteriorating. So this is something we can't evade. And sometimes can say some people jump the queue, like they don't die when they're 80 or 90, but they die when they're 30. And why do they jump the queue? It's maybe because they haven't done things so skillfully, so they kind of made kind of found shortcuts, and so they have to go earlier. So what the Buddha wanted us to know is to know the world and know how to live in the world, and know life, and know what makes life worthy of living, or good life, like a wholesome life or an unwholesome life. And this depends on the mind, how our mind reacts to the situations that we are in. Is our mind wholesome or unwholesome, like kusala or akusala? And like the things that are wholesome is a feeling of like we are good in ourselves. We are good-natured people. We're not in hatred, and we're not kind of in conflict with anybody. This is a feeling of goodness inside. That's wholesome, a wholesome mind state. The unwholesome mind state is the mind state that others have to fear and have to suspect that we're doing evil, and this brings to people even like killing each other. And the society that the Buddha promoted or wanted us to develop is a wholesome society where people rely on each other, also well-balanced society, and a society where people are flexible and they've got tolerance, and not a selfish society. So Luang Por stressed that it is our duty to practice Practice the Dhamma means to practice one's duty, the duty towards the fellow human beings, in the sense of developing goodness. Nobody can stay alone on this earth, and at least we have to rely on father and mother since we were born as children, and we need to develop ourselves in that sense that we understand these truths and these dependencies, that we know what is right or wrong. And we know, if we know what is right or wrong, that makes our heart wholesome and our mind peaceful. So, if you look at the animals, so like these birds outside, and they don't know right or wrong. They still they don't know right or wrong, but they still know they've got this love as well. Like they are also brought up by their parents, and so. We need to help to develop peace in society. Peace that comes from the mind. Lay the foundations in one's mind to be at peace. Mind without jealousy. A society that lives in friendship. So now in Thailand there is the New Year of Thailand called Songkran, and it's actually a festival that commemorates something auspicious, and people are having a lot of fun. They do all these water splashing ceremonies, and then the downside is that, just like the Buddha said, whenever you get carried away by your fun and pleasure, then there's danger. And in Songkran in Thailand, every year there are 400 to 500 deaths, through accidents, drunkenness, and things like that. So the energy that people have, the energy to express itself in good or bad actions, this is something which can be used. It's something useful generally. Human beings have got energy and they've got power. They can manipulate the world to their benefit. They can manipulate society to their benefit, and but it needs to be done with care, just the same as with electricity. And then sometimes there are power cuts when we use electricity. Sometimes it just kind of cuts, and then we're there without anything. So he likes to remember that whatever we have and what we do and where we come from is we have from our parents. It was given us from our parents. We haven't been born in the sense that we're self-reliant, but we've been raised by our parents. And this event of Songkran, of New Year, for example, is just a way of getting families together, and they have a meal together, and they eat together, and they meet each other. So it's a way to enhance one's family friendship and one's human relations. The Buddha taught us not to be heedless in this matter, not to overlook them and be careless, and to be carried away by one's external activities or one's tendencies to indulge in pleasure or egotistically. But he said we should have use our mind to study ourselves and to know ourselves. To study our minds in order to get peace and to live in a way that doesn't conflict with others. And when we use language, we shouldn't just use the conventional language, but there's the language called Niruti Bhasa, the language of liberation, the language that is beyond the conventions, so a language that supports the Dhamma practice. So generally human beings, they've got a really high potential, and they are able to understand the world, and they are able to understand themselves, so it is our duty to do this.